Lightning doesn't just ask for permission, it just shows up, ruins your day, and leaves your skeleton glowing like a bad x-ray. Now imagine someone who doesn't just control lightning, but he is lightning, walking around like he personally signed off on the laws of nature, and if you dare challenge him, he'll remind you that he is a god. That is the Enryu experience in a nutshell if you visit Skypiea. And the scary part, the power itself is one that low-key backs up his god complex. Join me in today's newest edition of the Devil Fruit Handbook, where we take a look at the power of the Goro Goro no Mi, also known as the Rumble Fruit, as well as the strength and the weaknesses and some of the other information that will potentially, no pun intended, shock you and make you better appreciate how the Devil Fruit adds to the complexity of this character. The Goro Goro no Mi is a Logia type Devil Fruit that lets the user control, create, and become lightning itself, effectively turning them into a living bolt of lightning. At its core, that's it. No complicated gimmick, no weird condition stacking, just raw elemental dominance, and in the hands of the right person, this Devil Fruit becomes a massive headache to deal with in battle. But the simplicity here, it is very deceptive, because lightning isn't just an attack, it's speed, it's heat, it's energy, and destruction wrapped all into one. You could even argue that the attacks themselves are moving faster than lightning. And when you hand that to someone like this current user who already views himself as a deity, you don't get a fighter. You get a walking natural disaster with a superiority complex and the power to bend most people who would even dare to challenge him to his will and make them beg for mercy faster than you smashing the like button and subscribing for more One Piece content. When we look at the strengths of this Devil Fruit, it should be clear. There's hacks and then there's the Rumble Fruit. So if I had to describe this Devil Fruit, Devil Fruit in two words, it would be absolutely these two here: raw power. This fruit casually hits output of up to 200 million volts, which is right in the range of lightning that is natural. That's not an anime exaggeration. That's the series telling you straight up that this man is wielding sky level destruction in his hands, and high key, the fact that someone this strong existed this early on in the story is absolutely insane, because with this Devil Fruit, you could arguably throw him in the story a few arcs later and Enryu would not feel out of place when it comes to power scaling. Then there's the speed itself. Lightning isn't just fast, it's the way that most characters are fast. Instead, when you look at this Devil Fruit, the speed is almost instantaneous in my opinion. Not on the level of someone like Kizaru, but it is absolutely fast. The Devil Fruit allows the user to literally vanish, reappear, and cross entire battlefields before most opponents can even register the movement. You're not reacting to that. You're guessing and you're praying if you're most characters in One Piece. Again, not the upper tiers, but most of them are going to be looking and they're going to be pissing themselves. Now you stack that on top of the Logia intangibility, where the user can become pure lightning, and then you have a bigger problem when fighting against the user of this Devil Fruit. Unless you have Haki or a specific counter like Luffy's body literally being a natural counter, your attacks, they just pass right through him. And even worse, getting close is basically self-harm. You touch him, hit him with metal, breathe wrong in his direction, look at him wrong, congratulations, you are getting electrocuted. If you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, you get the Nico Robin treatment, where he just points his finger at you and you end up extra crispy. But the part that makes this Devil Fruit insane, it isn't just the combat capabilities. Instead, in my opinion, it's the utility. The user can control electricity like a god tier multi-tool. For instance, the user can restart their own heart if it is stopped. It can melt and reshape metal mid-fight. It can power entire machines, including a flying arc itself. And then there's a part that most people sleep on, the surveillance aspect. Combining his lightning with mantra, Enryu can read electromagnetic signals in the air and basically turn the entire country into his personal radar system. Every voice, every movement, every whisper, it's all getting picked up. That's not just power, that's control. That's scary, and it just adds to the perception that he is a god to those who don't know any better. However, for as overpowered as this Devil Fruit makes the user, they're still a human being, and like all human beings, Devil Fruit users have a weakness. The weakness of this devil fruit is pretty much comical, but also brilliant when you look at who is able to exploit the weakness. So the biggest weakness of this devil fruit is rubber. Yeah. All that God tier lightning, it is hard countered by a material that most people use for their tires, or in this case, someone like Luffy, whose entire body is rubber. Luffy, the rubber boy, who is a growing symbol of freedom and liberation, is fighting against Enryu, the god high in the sky who oppressed the very people of Skypiea. Whether it's intentional or unintentional, Oda didn't just cook. He made a whole buffet with the symbolism here when you look at their dynamic, because rubber is an insulator. Enryu's attacks straight up do nothing to someone like Luffy. No damage, no burn, no effect itself. It completely bypasses everything that makes the fruit terrifying. And it gets worse. Luffy's punches can actually hit Enryu despite his Logia intangibility, because the electricity doesn't interact with rubber in the same way. Suddenly, the invincible god is getting rocked by a guy who is made of bounce house material, and at this point in the story, Luffy isn't even using haki. Outside of that, the fruit still has the standard devil fruit weaknesses. Sea stone, water, haki, they all level the playing field. But let's be real, the rubber weakness is the only one that matters in my opinion, because it's not just a counter, it's a narrative slap in the face, especially considering again what Luffy and Enryu both represent narratively. The fear of this devil fruit doesn't just come from one thing, it comes from a combination of things in my opinion. You're dealing with a guy who can hear you from miles away, decide, yeah, that person is annoying, and then delete you with a lightning strike before you're even in the fight. There's no warning, no buildup, just judgment from the sky. And when he really wants to escalate, he doesn't just target people, he can just target everything. By using massive thundercloud systems, he can rain down destruction across entire islands and even create attacks like Raigo that can wipe off an entire island off the map entirely. That's not a fighter, that is environmental annihilation. Most characters in One Piece, they give you a chance to fight back. This guy gives you a chance to regret existing, and then before you can even fully process how badly you messed up, this guy can even destroy you using his power, unless of course you're lucky enough to survive. Another thing that makes this devil fruit so feared in my opinion is that it's Oda showing the other side of how gods can be perceived. Not every god is a loving god. Some are vengeful, some are petty. Enryu is a reflection of what happens when human beings get power and believe themselves to be something more than they are. The power brings out what is already inside of the user's heart, for better or for worse. In the hands of someone like Vivi, this devil fruit would be something that's used to protect. But as we saw in Skypiea with the current user, it's a vehicle of fear. While it's fun to ask the question of what if this character swapped devil fruits with this person, I can't really imagine anyone else with this devil fruit. It's just perfect for the current user. The Goro Goro no Mi isn't just powerful, it's symbolic. Lightning has always been associated with gods. Thunder from the heavens, divine punishment, judgment from above is baked into mythology across multiple cultures. It's power, flashiness, and something that has fascinated mankind since the early days. Cavemen, they saw lightning streak across the black sky. They were filled with fear, wonderment, and curiosity. It was a primal understanding. You were looking at something that could kill you before you finished blinking, but the contrast of light and darkness over the lightning bolt across the black sky contrasts the very nature of human souls so well that you know right there that a god is the only thing that could have created something that perfectly balances fear and beauty. That's why when this character leans into it so hard, it hits. He literally introduces himself as God, which is basically doubling down as a pun, meaning I am lightning. That's not subtle, that's the story screaming at you. Everything about this fruit, it feeds into his God complex. The range lets him judge people from afar, just like how whatever God in whatever religion you believe in. The surveillance lets him hear everything, like the all-knowing deity, just like whatever God that you pray to for whatever religion you follow. The destructive power allows him to enforce divine punishment instantly, an act of God, if you will. And the simplicity of this Devil Fruit makes it even better. There's no mental gymnastics needed, no tricky conditions, just I am lightning, you are not, good luck. That type of mindset is exactly why this absolute, unquestioned, untouchable presentation of power is so fitting for this Devil Fruit. And that's the irony. The fruit makes the user feel like a god, but the moment someone shows up and doesn't play by his rules, someone immune to his divinity, the illusion shatters instantly. That someone was his natural enemy because he was a liberator with a body of rubber and pride too big to bow down that straw-hatted head of his would not allow, not in the presence of a man that called himself a god. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and clicking here for more videos from the Devil Fruit Handbook, or click here to check out my blind reactions to One Piece chapter by chapter from the start of the series as a brand new reader.